Today, I'm going to do something a little bit different. And while we wait, instead of just shooting the breeze, I want to read a poem to you guys. This poem is my favorite poem. It's by Hafiz, if you're familiar. He's a famous Iranian or Persian poet. And this is actually a poem that Richard reads in the 29th gene key, which is what we're passing through right now. And the first time I heard it, I just could not stop crying. It was just touched me so deeply. So it's about 3-minute read. I'm just going to give it a go and we'll let everybody else get in here. So it's called Bring the Man to Me. A perfect one was traveling through the desert. He was stretched out around the fire one night and said to one of his close ones, "There is a slave loose not far from us. He escaped today from a cruel master. His hands are still bound behind his back. His feet are also shackled. I can see him right now praying for God's help. Go to him. Ride to that distant hill. About 100 feet up and to the right, you will find a small cave. He is there. Do not say a single word to him. Bring the man to me. God requests that I personally untie his body and press my lips to his wounds." The disciple mounts his horse and within 2 hours arrives at the small mountain cave. The slave sees him coming. The slave looks frightened. The disciple, on orders not to speak, gestures towards the sky, pantomiming, "God saw you in prayer. Please come with me. A great Mushid has used his heart's divine eye to know your whereabouts." The slave cannot believe this story and begins to shout at the man and tries to run, but trips from his bindings. The disciple becomes forced to subdue him. Think of this picture as they now travel. The million candles in the sky are lit and singing. Every particle of existence is a dancing altar that some mysterious force worships. The earth is a church floor whereupon in the middle of a glorious night walks a slave, weeping, tied to a rope behind a horse with a speechless rider, taking him toward the unknown. Several times, with all of his might, the slave tries to break free, feeling he is being returned to captivity. The rider stops, dismounts, brings his eyes near the prisoner's eyes. A deep kindness there communicates an unbelievable hope. The rider motions, "Soon you will be free." Tears roll down from the rider's cheeks in happiness for this man. Anger, all this fighting and tormenting want. Beloved, God has seen you and sent a close one. Beloved, God has seen your heart and prayer and sent Hafiz. Take a second to breathe that in. A couple of things to go over that I talk about each time just to set the stage, and then we'll open up the floor. So first thing is I just want to remind everyone of what's called the Gene Keys approach. So 4 big pieces there. The first one is self-inquiry. So the Gene Keys are a system that is driven by self-inquiry. I don't have the answers that you want. You do. And I can help point you towards those answers and help you ask some different questions. But ultimately, you're the only one that can go within. I don't have your life experience. Next is patience. Going within takes time. Things take time. We need space. Next is gentleness. Be kind to yourself. Be kind to others. Remember that your heart's been through a lot of different experiences. And the way to open our heart isn't anything to do with our mind, but it's being gentle with ourselves and finding self-love and love with others. And then the last piece is contemplation. So really making the time and space to sit with these things and not just think about them, but feel them in your emotions and in your body. Last thing before we open it up is just a reminder that you're not taking up anyone's time or anyone's space by talking on these calls. We're here to learn from one another. And so your role on this call is to intuit the wisdom, intuit the learnings from whatever is being talked about in that moment into your life, into your being.
Hi. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Dottie. Good to see you.
Thank you. If you don't know me, I'm from Cayman Islands. I'm a Canadian expatriate. I've been here about 35 years. I followed my dream here, found my teacher, and that's a whole story. That was my first midlife crisis at age 36. And I feel like I'm going through the second one at age 70. So I just turned 70 and I thought I was great, but all those stigmas about age are creeping in. Anyway, what I want to say relates to all of these 4 guidelines that you just spilled out. Self-inquiry, patience, gentleness, and contemplation is exactly what I've been going through the last 2 months. And what triggered all of this was a deep dive ayahuasca experience in the deep Amazon, and 5 ceremonies, and I'd never done that before. 5 ceremonies in the space of 21 days. So that really rocks your world. And what it did to me is it completely stripped me of all my strength. I was completely exhausted. In the ceremonies, I couldn't even stand up. So to go to the bathroom, I needed help. So everything, like I pride myself on being really strong, everything that I thought I had was taken. So my strength was taken. And if anyone's ever done plant medicine before, it's all about cleansing. So all 5 ceremonies I was cleansing, which means you're doing a deep clean in your bowels and your whole digestive system, and it comes out both ends and you have no control. So every fear I had about losing control and not looking very pretty, because you don't look pretty when you're going through that all came up for me. So I didn't have I did have some vision, but most of it was cleansing. And I was very aware of the medicine deep down in my pelvis and in my whole system. So when I got home, it's like I barely got home. I couldn't hardly function. And typically for me, the work that I do is physical. It's outdoors. I work in the ocean. I combine land and water in a conditioning methodology that's very a paradigm shifter. It's very different and new. The kind of clientele I have, because I work privately, generally, they're not here in the summer because here it's super, super hot. So they all go, they have other homes usually that they go to this time of year. So typically in the summer, I'm not very busy. And the story I was making up in my head about being 70, that this is the end. Who's going to keep hiring a 70-year-old in the fitness realm? Especially when I'm so depleted, I've lost all my strength. And it's taken me 2 months to work through it and figure it out. Meanwhile, I have no income coming in. So all of that anxiety and all of that root chakra worry that comes in. So everything, I had everything there. And it reminded me of when I was 36, when again, I lost everything. I lost a career that I'd been in for almost 2 decades. I walked away from that. I walked away from a marriage and I left my country. So everything in my life changed. So I'm thinking, oh my God, something huge is coming up and I better hold on to my hat and get ready to change. But I'm starting to see my way through. Clients are coming back. I'm onboarding a new client in another week. And what has been coming through for me is maybe because I'm older, I have this old way of thinking that you have to work harder. That's been a theme for me. If you really want things to work, you have to try harder. So I stayed in my first long-term relationship like 10 years longer than I should have, because I thought it was me and I had to try harder. I stayed in a banking career longer than I should have because I thought I just have to try harder. So again, this mentality was showing up that what do I need to do to try harder? Do I need to cultivate more social media and website kind of stuff, because I hate that kind of stuff? And it doesn't really serve me because I work privately. Like, how many clients can you take on when you work one-on-one, right? So I was trying to figure it out in my head. and all the while really judging myself severely. So after a while, I just got sick and tired of being judgmental and edgy and uptight. And I just thought, okay, just trust. You have this beautiful space of time where you can be lazy, be still, relax, trust the process, because at this time of my life I have so much wisdom to share, especially in my profession, and I was tired. So what if the universe is orchestrating itself, to use a cliche, and everything is orchestrated in your favor? And it really was. So I started to relax into it and just be gentle and patient and take away the self-critic and just allow myself to. I love homemaking, I love decorating, I have huge plants situation outside with mini flowers, and I just got into that. And I stopped reaching outside of myself for help. And I just had this deeper wisdom that everything you're looking for is within you. Another cliche, but it really is true. So what if there's nothing to do? What if all you need to do is relax, go into the self-inquiry, but in a more relaxed way, and make some space, because there's so much stuff going on in my head. Could I make some space for an insight or a download to come in? And so what I'm figuring out is, if you have a wish and you're not consciously aware of it, you're going to get it fulfilled. So I had a client, he's a different mindset than I am. We're not a good match, I don't think. He doesn't get half of what we're doing, and he's going down the medical wormhole. Anyway, so my secret wish is I don't want to deal with him. So, but if I'm short of funds, then what ends up happening is I'm prostituting myself to get money from him when I don't enjoy working with him and I don't think we're a good match anyway. So here's the test. Am I willing to let that go and make space for a client that really is more aligned with the paradigm shift kind of work that I do? And sure enough, I decided, you know what? He needs to move on. If he wants to find a different kind of a trainer, I'll even help him, but I'm going to let him go, and I'm going to trust the universe will look after me, because that's what I was wishing. I was wishing for a higher caliber of clients. So I need to be a higher caliber of trainer with more integrity. So things like that's just kind of one example of what's been going on, but that's what's been going on. And it really comes down to, it relates to my gene key and purpose. I'm a 48-2, and the shadow is inadequacy. That's the root. If I shared with you the way I grew up, you would understand. I completely knew that I was not worthy to be loved. So raised in a container like that, the stepmother clearly doesn't want you there. The father cannot show any favoritism because it will upset the stepmother. And I never knew who my mother was till I was a teenager. So that inadequacy piece is deeply embedded. And that's what I'm dealing with. The Siddhi of that is wisdom. And I know I have a lot of wisdom, but finding the confidence and finding a resourceful way of working through that so that I can share my wisdom instead of sharing my sense of inadequacy, which is only reinforced by clients who are not aligned with me. Does that make sense? So I just thought I'd open that up. And I think my main point is to say is, it's time now not to do more work. It's time now to create your reality by being really clear of what your dreams are and your desires. And I never knew how to dream. that just wasn't an option when I was little. If my dream was anything, my dream would be, would somebody love me? And that didn't happen. I had to make that happen later on in my life. All right. I think I'm talked out. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing all that, Dottie. And we know, but nobody else knows. I talked to Dottie for 90 minutes one day and really dug in. And the wisdom that's there, Dottie, is out of this world. There's just so much for you to share with people. And I want to tell you a little story, and I think it might be helpful for everybody. Over my last year, really, that try harder versus trust thing is something that I've struggled with my entire life. I thought that there was something that I needed to do that was going to make my life work, because up until very recently, it just felt like a constant uphill battle. However, I got to a place where it was mostly necessity, where I just had to come into surrender. And so in November of last year, I shut down the last business, which was a beast, and took literally until two months ago, when I decided that this was the thing that I'm going to be doing, to do nothing. And can I tell you, that was the hardest period of my life. The doing nothing was so uncomfortable because I just wanted to take action. I just wanted to do whatever the next thing is that I was supposed to be doing, but I didn't have the clarity that you just talked about in order to take that action. And so it's in the doing nothing that I think that we can come into this clarity, and we come into this place of relaxation that allows you to share that wisdom that you have, instead of scrambling to figure out how to get the message out to the world, or how to get more people to listen to you, or whatever comes up. Because in that time of slowness, that's when we can develop this relationship to God, this relationship to something that shows us that we don't have to struggle. And any action that you take from a place of obscurity is going to lead to more confusion. Whereas action taken from clarity is initiative, right? That's what starts us towards the pathway of growth. And so I encourage you to just stay in that discomfort until you are crystal clear on what is the next direction that I want to be going. And use your dreams. Your dreams are put there by God. There's a reason that those things are coming up for you. And it doesn't mean that dream is going to manifest, but it does mean by taking the first step towards that dream, the pathway is going to start to open up for whatever is supposed to happen. I think that's where a lot of people get confused, is they see a dream and they're like, man, there's no way that could ever happen. And that's besides the point. It doesn't matter. What matters is you take the first step towards the dream, because that's the path. And then from there, the path will open in whatever way it's meant to open.
This was the hardest thing I've ever done as well, because I'm a doer.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not where it's at anymore. I've been there. At this time, it's about working less and trusting and sharing more. And ironically, I have in my vocation obscurity, shadow.
Mm-hmm. And it will come. A time will come where you feel the call of initiative, right? Where you just know. And this just happened for me a couple months ago. And that's why that's why we're all sitting here right now. It just became clear to me what I needed to be doing. And when that happens, you'll know. So until that happens, go tend to those plants, make your house beautiful, develop your connection with God, take your time, take your space, and you'll know when it's time.
Yeah, because when I'm not busy doing things and producing and working, all the shadows come out. And you think, oh my God, I thought I've done all my work. It's yes, you have. And now you're at a deeper level of excavation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You got it.
So for you guys didn't know, I wanted to recruit Jay, but I didn't have the money. So there was this dilemma. And the lesson in that was, Dottie, you need more self-inquiry, which is that number one, self-inquiry. But I do self-inquiry, but it had to be in a more gentle, trusting way, not a judgmental way.
And even in that conversation, right, you were still in that space of, let's
Oh,
figure this out. I need to force it. I want to make it happen.
yeah,
And my
yeah,
response was, if that's the energy, then it's not the right
yeah.
path for you. Things will feel easy when they're right, which is so hard for us to believe, because even our language, we think about our language around work. It's hard work. All of these sayings that we have, everything needs to be hard. And if it's not hard, we're not going to grow or change. And that is just the farthest thing from the truth. Corinne, I see your hand up. Did you have something that you wanted to share?
Sorry, my camera's not on. This is a good reminder, because when I started with human design and learned I was a projector, I was like, oh, that makes sense. I'm supposed to relax more and just be with what is and flow with things. And because, I was such a workaholic and have been toning that down as I got older. But then as learning I'm a projector was like, oh, okay, that absolutely makes sense. I'm supposed to go within and I'm supposed to listen for what is next. And I just realized, yeah, that I guess I didn't do that, because this week I'm doing this thing with a friend where we're going to a thing, or it's causing me anxiety. And it's, oh yeah, you didn't really go within on that. You went with the excitement that she had for the thing. Uh, I don't know. It's a weird thing, because in the past few years I've developed some anxiety which I never had before. And so I'm having to do this thing where I'm performing and standing up in front of somebody and whatever. And so I'm going to push through that, but also in a new way, bringing myself rather than any kind of like, oh, how do I do this perfect, or how do I do this correctly, or whatever, but just instead, just, okay, relax. Anyway, the dilemma I sometimes have is, what is the difference between, um, sometimes you push yourself to do something, you're not comfortable, but then you do it and you're like, oh my God, I'm so glad I did that. And this might be slightly off from what she's saying, which is listen to your internal um, guidance. But I just thought I'd bring it up because because there are definitely things, even if I think of going on a trip, go on an airplane, I'm like, oh, I can do a road trip, but for some reason, and I know I'd be fine to do it, but thinking about it brings me a little bit of anxiety. Yeah, that's all I wanted to say. I'm glad. I like what she had to say. It's a great reminder, but I also wonder about sometimes pushing oneself. And I think I'm probably answering my own question. If you go with inquiry of, should I do this, or do I want to do this, or how does this feel for me? Then that would be step number one. And if you got a yes, then even if it brought you anxiety, you would just go forward. And I think I'm reminding myself now that I think I did feel like, yes, I want to do this. So in that state, maybe that'll be better, in that state of, yeah, I decided I wanted to do this. I felt the inner nudge. And so, yeah, it's bringing up these things, but let's learn from this.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our ego can be tricky sometimes. And trying to, our soul makes a decision and immediately our ego speaks up and says, whoa, that's going to hurt my way of making you operate. So it really takes some time to go within and to learn which of those voices is talking. And the more you
Yes.
develop your relationship with each of those voices, the more you'll know which one is talking.
Yes, yes.
Valerie, did you have
Absolutely.
something you wanted to share?
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably would have shared sooner, but I had to calm down. Like, I had to be able to talk. As soon as you, Dottie, as soon as you talked about working harder, that's what I've done my entire life at 54. I know what that's because that's what we were taught. I also had a stepmom. Same. I was lucky to have my biological mom in my life, but just in the last 24 hours, things have opened up for me in a way that I just can't believe it. And the reason why they did was because I put everything into me. I put everything into my house. I'm trying to buy this little house and it's so much work. And my brother came and we're painting it just to get it ready for escrow because it was such a dilapidated house when I moved into it. Putting energy into myself, being at home, all of the things. And yesterday I had this beautiful epiphany while I was taking a shower. And then I went to my girlfriend's house, who I've had these dreams of doing Heal Happily house parties where I come to people's houses so they can congregate in their house. And then I come in. And yesterday it turned out to be my very first one. It was actually my second one, but this was the first one that got me really, wow, this could really happen. And they invited me back. And they invited me there to begin with. I didn't even extend the idea to begin with. It was actually, I have a husband and wife friend, and the husband was like, hey, you should just come to our house, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh my God, I've been thinking about that. So I did. So yesterday I had an epiphany about my business. I want to write books, and I had this idea rolling around for 2 years now. And it finally, the whole beginning book and then everything that could come after that is infinite. It's limitless on what I could add after that. And I could bring people in like yourselves, honestly, to be to help with books for what you do. It's amazing. And then I went and I have a client who I do body work, and I have a client who has a neck issue. And so I've been telling her, hey, if we got on a regular schedule, and she's always a little, and yesterday she's like, hey, can I finally get on a regular schedule? And that's an added $400 a month to my income to go see her 4 times a month. And so it's just like mind-blowing how everything just fell into place, but it did not happen until I stopped. I've been deep diving into my spirituality. I told you guys last time, like how I got the Kabbalah and the I Ching and all. I had the I Ching, but and all the things, and I got my Bible, and I'm just like deep diving where all of this and into myself and pulling out what resonates with me and what I want to put out in the world and all of this thing. And so, Dottie, I want to say thank you. These calls, oh my God, thank you, Jay, because I never in my life realized, like, I come here and in support of others, and I don't even have anything to say, but what you guys say just gets me. And today, especially because this has been my journey so deeply. And I just want to say one other thing, because Jay, when you said this, I go, oh my God. So you talked about dreams, right? And taking the first step. Well, back in 2020, October of 2020, when everything was falling apart, and had fallen apart, and I was trying to piece it all back together. No, it wasn't October, it was before that. But anyway, it doesn't matter. Back in 2020, I had this dream, and it was the clearest dream I'd ever had. I'm a short hair girl, shoulder length at most. Then I chop it all off again. My whole life, a little bit of a tomboy, whatever. And I had this dream that I had hair down almost to my waist, my shiny gray that I have, almost to my waist. And I was super fit. And I'm looking in the mirror and I'm like, oh, that's the person I want to be. And when I snapped out of the dream and when I woke up from the dream, you talk about taking the first step. I was like, okay, I'm going to grow my hair out. That was my first step. And it was this very small step, very small, but it was the first step to my dream. And now, 4 years later, I see myself and I'm like, wow, I am very close to that person that I saw looking in the mirror in that dream. I have another year to be there. One more year and I'm there and I can see it. And so anyway, so that all of this, how it all just came together is, for me, beautiful. So thank you. This is my therapy. This is my, like, you guys are my therapists. Thank you.
I love that so much for you, Valerie. That's so awesome. The thing that brought up for me is the fact that we live in a magical universe. And we have been told time and again that's not how it works, right? And that, for whatever reason, is the story that we decide to identify with. However, There's this whole other story out there that has been told to us through sages throughout all of time, from the Buddha to Christ to Hermes to everyone in between, which is you are in a magical universe with a being that is watching over you, that can make anything happen in service to you. And it boggles my mind how I went 35 years choosing to listen to the story that we're in this place that we need to struggle and fight and do everything on our own, because both stories are there. Ultimately, which story do you want to listen to?
This one.
Exactly. Me too.
So-
Me too. Octavia, I saw your hand up. Thank you, Val. That was beautiful.
Wow, thank you for both of your shares. I guess what was coming up for me when I was listening and what's coming up in my life presently is the deeper levels of moving through the trauma body. And with regards to the mother. So what I've been doing in my practice and with my clients and also on my own journey is moving through what I have come to identify as mother hunger. And it's actually based on a book by Kelly McDaniels, which I would highly recommend. She's got also podcasts on YouTube. She's really brilliant. And I've been searching for what this mother wound is that I can't quite excavate. And she describes it really beautifully, breaking it down into the lack of nurturance, protection, and guidance, which I didn't have any of that. I had a mother there. My father was our abuser. He was sexually, physically, emotionally, mentally, and there was just always levels of walking on eggshells. So I've done a lot of work. I was aware of this and shared my story when I was 22 years old. I didn't share anything with anyone prior to that. And I think inside my system, I knew things weren't okay, but to keep up the illusion, I'm also 55. So I resonate with that, like moving into the second Saturn return of life. I'm in my almost 8th phase of the 7-year cycles. And so these deeper level things, and my mother is still alive. So the way Kelly McDaniels breaks this apart is it's so difficult. There's so much guilt and shame and feeling like you're betraying your own mother, but you can't really love her because she rejects herself, basically, is what I've come to understand about my own mother. And looking at her keys, her gene keys, and I can see where her keys and her undealt shadows created some of, not all, but created some of my shadows in my keys. And so I guess I just wanted to share that, and that it just takes a tremendous amount of turning the actual physical heart inwards and just allowing this deep grief. It's a grief that is unimaginable, that stays with you for your entire existence. And I used to resist the grief because in my childhood, my dad would be physically violent if anyone cried or challenged anything. So emotions were just off the table. So we would cry. I would protect my sister and we would cry in the closet. And so when I got out of high school, my dad passed away when I was 17. And when I got into college, I started opening myself up through yoga, through meditation. And I found this deep well of tears and also anger. And so that's been really something to transmute and to work with and to make peace with and allow the anger to be there, to feel through it, even though it's a really difficult emotion to transmute, especially if you've grown up with violence. You feel like you're becoming something that you don't like, but embracing the predator within myself, embracing the betrayer within myself. There's very difficult places to be completely honest, I guess is the word. Just be completely honest with what is coming up and what is there. and allowing this grief and anger to actually be mechanisms of detox. So rather than resisting this or questioning, which I get a lot of clients, I thought I already worked through this mother wound. Why am I still crying? Why do I still have this anger? Because there's deeper and deeper layers. And honestly, what I've come to know for myself, having gene key 47 in a pretty prominent placement, is that, and Richard Rudd talks about this too, this karmic connection, that we are the vehicles. So it is personal because we carry it and we have experiences with it, but it's also very much collective. And so really embracing and understanding and being present with every time I allow my own system to detox through grief, through anger, through tears, through that extremely vulnerable place where when I was a child, I wasn't protected at all. So that kind of vulnerability to even arrive at a place where I can hold space not only for myself, but others in that energy is, I know, transmuting for the collective. I know that it is shifting not just my ancestors forward and back and up and down and around, because time doesn't work the way that we understand it as humans. And so just embracing that, the gravity of that allows me to be able to be more present through deeper and deeper layers and stop asking the question, why am I still processing this? Why is this happening to me? It's not happening to me. This is all stuff that's actually moving through me. And some of it for me is my mom's undealt trauma. There's so much she projected onto me my whole childhood. And I needed to be angry. I needed to hate her. I needed to get that out of my system to find the compassion within myself to see that this is bigger than me. It's bigger than her. And it's bigger than what I gave to my own kids, which is also a whole nother level of 3-line. I'm a 1-3. So 3-line always comes up. There's all this transmutation of shame, of worth. Yeah. And just understanding that it's coming through, it's coming up to come out. And this is part of my gift. It's no longer a burden and a curse. I can just be present with it. I can cry with my client. I can allow them this deep space to feel. And I can pass that on to my kids, even though I made a lot of mistakes and I passed on mother hunger to my older kids. Yeah. I don't know exactly where I'm going with all of that, but it just really has been coming up to the surface for me. And yeah, now there was 2 people that were sharing about this longing for this mother, for this nurturance. And just to be so gentle and kind and turn that heart inward, because it really is a lifelong wound that holds a ton of gifts. But you have to go through the thing, that you have to go through the actual sitting with the feelings. So I really appreciate your vulnerability, Valerie, in just sharing your emotions. And I really don't hold back or push down as much as possible. There's always a maybe situation where I don't feel safe, so I don't allow myself to do that. But I find that the vulnerability really cracks people open. It cracks me open when I'm with other people too. Yeah. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Octavia.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I want to say that this is a safe space. So we get to be vulnerable here, all of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, Octavia, I think it's beautiful that I assume you've heard of the wounded healer archetype.
Yeah.
So that's what came up for me as you were talking. You found a way to take everything that you've been through. And I'm sorry that you had to go through all that suffering. I know that it's not an easy task and that it affects us for the rest of our lives. And you've managed to take that and use it as a way to be compassionate with people that you work with and to try and heal the generational trauma that you're talking about, not just in you and your family, but in other people. And I don't know much better of a way to spend your time. So I just thank you for that. I'm curious, when you're speaking to this grief and anger, can I ask you a couple questions?
Mm-hmm.
When
Yep.
you're speaking to that grief and anger, are you grieving and angry at your mom? Are you grieving and angry at your loss of your childhood? Or what is it directed towards?
It kind of shifts and changes, to be honest with you. Like, my life's work is the city of justice. So I've literally carried anger my entire life. I have been a pissed off little fucking pixie a lot about injustices. And mostly I've been giving a lot of power away my entire life by trying to fix the injustices and heal others. And I needed to have quite a few experiences where I created massive levels of exhaustion for myself to understand that I need to turn that heart inward and really ground into my own personal experiences of what I need to transform, or I don't have enough energy and groundedness to be able to be that for other people, to be present. Yeah. So I think, like, injustices in general, I've definitely held more anger probably in my adult life towards my mother. It's difficult to process all of that because I'm not on no contact with her. And just recently, I've been just writing down, like, what would my life have been like if I went no contact 25 years ago? And I know it's a bit of fantasizing, but it's moving through like these things that are still coming up in that realm. So I have less anger today. It's not so focused. I did a sacred rage and then I got certified in sacred rage so I could take people through a 4-hour portal of just really going into that and being very specific about it. Do I still sometimes get hooked into the ways that she gaslights me or the ways that she invalidates me? Sometimes I do. Yeah. And I just have to be really gentle with myself in that. But mostly the injustices that I feel the most anger about what's happening more in the collective right now. That seems to be a big one that I'm just allowing to move through my body. Yeah. I spent a lot of my childhood being angry at my dad. And I feel like the grief that I have is really about just being a lost girl. That's literally what I've identified myself as since I ever can remember. So just grieving that lost girl, that lost childhood, that lost mothering, because I also know that through that grief, I become a better mother for my own kids. And I think also grief still comes up about the mistakes that I made, the ways that I passed on my mother hunger to my older children when I was less understanding what this mother wound was. Because it was very visible to see what my father was bringing to the table. It wasn't so visible with my mother. And it's taken me a lot of years to start really hearing and not just taking it on as my own, but really hearing where her projections are. Human design and gene keys were like super pivotal for that because as a 1-3, I'm meant to work with people who have the 3-5. And that's my mother. The clients that I have recently, we've been pulling their human design and G keys. And I have quite a few clients, ironically, who are 3-5s and they carry some similar things. And so I've got to not just heal myself, but hold this deep space and reverence through it not being so personal because it's a client and I can hold that space in a much different way than what I can with my own mother and being around her because she's 73 now and she still gaslights me. She still tells me I'm too sensitive. I'm taking things too personally. She's just joking. So there's all of that that still exists. And the more that I just allow myself to transmute and detox through crying, through having moments with sacred rage and knowing how to transmute that, the less personally it feels when she puts her energy out. Like I just don't pick it up. And that's not a perfect science by any means. The other day I picked it up a little bit and I was like, oh,
That's not mine.
yeah, that's not mine. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that we're in a place as a collective right now, and just as humans at large, we have a hard time with paradox, right? We need or really want one thing to be true or another thing to be true. And I think a big part of the reason that our society or our collective right now is struggling is because we cannot hold this feeling of unconditional love or even just love towards someone and at the same time be angry with what they're doing. And I think that is just such a key in the work that you're doing and the work that's going to heal the world, is knowing that both of those things can be true at exactly the same moment. Have you done any of the Venus sequence work, Octavia?
I just actually took the Venus sequence. Actually, no, I just took the prosperity workshop with Richard Rudd.
Mhm.
So that just finished up maybe a month ago or a few weeks ago.
So I would direct you there. So if the Venus sequence stuff, specifically around IQ, EQ, and SQ, are tied to your childhood development from SQ 0 to 7, EQ 7 to 14, IQ 14 to 21. And so that might help you unpick that weave of the wounding pattern that you have on a really deep and impactful level.
Yeah, I just bought the online course for the Venus sequence, and then I'm just finishing up a container with a coach who also works with human design and gene keys. And so that's the kind of stuff that's coming up. So I literally just wrote a list of those 7-year cycles and like the traumas that I experienced within those 7-year cycles. And a lot of it I have dealt with. And then there's stuff that I'm like, oh, I bypassed that. Or I forgot that happened during that time. So this is, yeah, it's going to be an ongoing, deeper exploration. Yeah.
I think that's going to be some really beautiful, powerful, impactful work for you, because it comes through a spiritual lens. Everything is different. It's one thing to try and process it here or even in our heart, but there's another level when we involve God and when we can just give things up and see what comes up and through to foster our healing. And my guess is, because it was a lot of younger childhood stuff, there's going to be a lot of somatic work that needs to be done also. So the sacred rage, of course, makes a lot of sense. But if you've ever heard of traumatic release or somatic experiencing, I think those are modalities that might be really helpful in healing for you, that are worth a check out. But,
yeah. Thank you. Yeah,
yeah.
I do work with those things with my clients, and
Okay.
I have 2 practitioners that I work with. Because there's a lot lodged in the body, a lot for mother wounds. It's a lot in the jaw, back of the neck, thyroid. So yeah, that's ongoing work for me, definitely. And thank you for bringing that forward, because somatic work is so important. Being the age that I am, I went to a lot of therapy, traditional therapy, for like on and off 20 years. And they never, ever, like, never talked in terms of somatics or what the body actually carries. So that's been an ongoing process as well.
Mhm.
Yeah. Which
Yeah,
I appreciate that our conscious has evolved since then.
same. I know there's so much there that I think most people are just blind to, because the traditional medical establishment, I think, is just opening up to this idea now. And there's going to be a lot of beautiful stuff that comes on the other side when it becomes a little bit more mainstream, which I think it's happening now. I think that there is definitely a flow in that direction. Thank you so much, Octavia. I really appreciate it. I want to give just a plug really quick while this is in my brain. If anybody does want to get any of the coursework from Richard, so Venus sequence, activation sequence, pearl sequence, 7 sacred seals, any of that stuff that is from Gene Keys, now that I am in my guides journey, one of the things that they also do is give you an affiliate link. So that would help me. Same price for you guys, but if you're going to buy anything, I get a little kick back to it. So just keep that in the back of your brain if you're engaging with anything on that side of the house, which I encourage you to do. If you have not done that work, it's how I have, that's really all I've done, to be completely honest with you guys, is those 3 courses: activation, Venus, Pearl, at a deep level, right? I've gone through them a lot of times, but that's the only work really that I've engaged with up until this point. So that's one thing. Next thing, if you can go camera on, I put that in the chat, but I didn't say it out loud. I would love that. If you can't, that's okay. No pressure, but I always love to see faces where I can. And then next, I want to go to Lindsay. But before we go, I just want to tell everybody, Lindsay, actually, I don't want to steal your thunder. Lindsay, why don't you tell everybody?
Oh, darn. I was hoping you would speak for me. That's
No way.
You know how much I don't want to speak. First, I would like to speak to everybody who's already spoken.
Please.
Because the thread of what's happening here is so meaningful for me. First of all, Dottie, I'm 73, which also came up in talking to Octavia as the age of her mother, which is a really interesting stage of life where things are really shifting. And I had to quit my job to step into my spiritual work and be here right now because I've been working as a long haul truck driver for 20 years. Primarily because I like to be alone and I don't want to talk to anyone. But that's not my path. Which is really evident in my gene keys. And I work with an energy healer who said to me, okay, I'm getting that you need to look into gene keys. And she was so right. And I love it because of all the information. And my mother is very scientifically based and loves all the mental. I knew she would love the gene keys because there's so much information to have. But I also wanted her to deal with some of the other stuff that's there. And a lot of us in this work are here because our lives have broken down in a way, which is a big blessing, which I talk about in my book. That is what Jay was alluding to, is my story of my awakening. And the first step is that surrender, where things fall apart so much that you're like, you have no place else to go but in. And I'm a mother with 6 girls, Octavia, and we should probably talk. And I didn't have any support from men in my life. So I worked all the time. And this was my escape from feeling my feelings, where my mother's escape is to go all intellectual. And so my younger sister did a trauma retreat. She's into healing with horses about 1.5 years ago. And my mother had just lost her eyesight completely. And she's a very spiritual woman, and I'm really blessed to have her as my mother. And yet the wounding is still there. And I was surprised to learn I have trauma because my mom paid for us all to go to support my sister, and who broke open but me and my mom. And this trauma retreat, and it primarily came through spiritual bypassing and what is called chronic positivity, from never being able to talk about the shadow. And I had an epiphany this morning about that because I had the teaching that, okay, there's 2 polarities here. We have the shadow and we have the genius. And in between, we have this gift, and we want to be in the balance. But this morning, I was talking to my friend about gene keys, and I said, you know what? I'm getting the idea and the understanding through what I'm learning that this is a whole package. It's not polarity, Jay, and thank you for that epiphany, that it's the interaction between the genius energy and the shadow and the wholeness of that whole package that is the gift. And that's huge, that understanding, which I think is going to allow me to accept the shadow parts. And I wanted to speak about the magic, and thank you for bringing that up, because obviously I want to stand for the magic piece. Coming from a family that's been super religious to start, and then real scientific about the energy of how it all works and the science behind our energy, and also my mom's into extraterrestrials and DNA, all the science behind changing our DNA, and I understand all that, and I see the place for everything that we have access to, and also talk about AI and all of that. But I want to hold on to the magic and the sacred, and so I'm getting clarity on standing for that, which brings me to my life's work gene key, which is, if I can read through my tears, it's intuition in the gift and clarity for the Siddhi. And it comes out of, so it's 57. I can't read the shadow because it's light. So I use my intuition to channel angel messages. And 2 weeks ago, I got a message from the Earth Mother, which was a real shock to me because I've been primarily doing angels. And it was so comforting. And I really want my messages to go out to the world. And that's why I got on Gene Keys, to take the money part of it. And I've been into it for two years. And I've been really avoiding the relationship sequence. And I know I'm going to have to get into that because I still don't have the money thing down. But I did launch my first book called Awakening Consciousness, Discovering a Larger Version of Self. It's the story of my awakening experience. And I actually wrote it a long time ago, but then I was afraid to promote it because I would have to talk to somebody about it and I would have to promote myself. But I'm aligned too in my vocation and my life's work. And I'm a 5 in a couple places in my pearl. I'm following my intuition. I'm being called into this, and I don't know where it's going to lead, but anyway, it turned out that I, through my publisher, was able to get #1 in a lot of spiritual self-help, self-healing on Amazon the last 3 days, and trying to accept all the congratulations. And another friend said, "Have you seen all of the congratulations on Facebook?" And I'm like, "No, I haven't been there." And I didn't. And Jay told me we're going to talk about this today, and I was like, should I show up or should I dodge? And trying to show up. Thanks, Jay. And because I so want to dive into the work again and say, all right, now the next book, I got the next book to do now. The next book is my angel messages. It's already written. I just have to publish it. And so I'm really grateful for the gene keys. And I find that when I did my mom's chart, I really understand her a lot better because we're not the same at all. And it's no wonder I feel misunderstood. not seen, not heard. And when she lost her eyesight, I said, oh, great. Now it's physical. Now she really can't hear me. Oh, and she lost her hearing too, so she had to get hearing aids. She's fine every other way. She's going to live to be 120. She's 95 now. And I had a nervous breakdown because I couldn't take care of her anymore. I'm the oldest of 6 kids and nobody else can take her for very long. So it was up to me to take care of her. So she sold her home and gave everything away like she was dying and went into a home for a year. And it's so silly because it's just over dramatic. I said, why did you do that? You're not dying. And she loves to do the martyr thing. So anyway, now we're talking again after being separated for a year and a half because I was just done. And she wants me to come back and take care of her again. So we'll see what happens there. So anyway, I appreciate so much the conversation and how, for me, everything ties together so beautifully. And I really appreciate everybody. Thanks.
I appreciate you, Lindsay, so much. I know that you don't believe this, but you deserve so much love and so much success. And I know that's a struggle for you to hear and to accept, but everything in my heart is just drawn to you in such a big way. And you just have got to open yourself to accepting it. And that'll come in time. There's nothing to force there. Just be present, be willing, be open. I'm just so grateful you're here. For everyone that's here, I posted the link to Lindsay's book in the chat. So if you want to go and snag it, it is in there. I would love for us to support her in whatever way we are able to do. And then I want to open it up. I think Lily has something to say to you, Lindsay.
I actually have something to say to everyone because it's been so beautiful to hear about your mother wounds and mother hunger, and I really like this expression, Octavia. And I think I say this every time, but just so you guys know, I'm writing my PhD about parenting and how we heal the next generations, and it's emotional validation. So it's essentially about the mother wound. But I wanted to just share that. So I'm 31, but my mother is around like the 50s age. And the reason why I'm in the degree that I'm in is because I had to deal with a lot of this stuff. And I am the one who is now breaking out of this generational trauma to the fullest. But I haven't realized until recently that actually my mother has done a lot of the work and I have it so much easier than her. And recently we had a breakthrough in our relationship, and that is basically because I understood that she has done the work, a lot of the work, so I have a much easier life. And what I'm doing now is what Octavia is doing. I have aspirations to write a book about this and coach parents and stuff like this, because I'm already so far ahead that where my mother was. And I wanted to tell you guys that it is so important that you do this work. And it is for you for sure, but it is also for your children. And it's so healing. It makes me really emotional. So thank you for being here. It's a gift that you guys do all this, and it's really important.
Thank you, Lily. Much appreciated. Jan, do you want to speak to? Yeah, perfect. Do you want to speak to that book really quick?
You saw the post and you were like, is he going to say something about that?
Exactly.
And I just jumped in. So the only thing I wanted to do, I'm just listening in right now, but the moment you were talking, Lindsay, and also Lily, it reminded me of a conversation Jay and I had earlier this week about The Hero's Journey by Joseph Campbell. But there's also a Heroine's Journey by Maureen Murdoch. And that's the book I put into the chat because that particularly speaks about the mother wound, and particularly speaks about how many women in the world today struggle with the relationship with their mother, which may be related to the relationship with their father, and then they say goodbye to the feminine, and at a certain pace they embrace it again. It's too big of a story, but it's really that book can make a lot of a difference there, just by how she wrote it, and she's looking at the emotional side. She's been a student of Joseph Campbell, who wrote The Hero's Journey, and at a certain point she had a conversation with him as a student when she said, by the way, Joseph, or Professor, I'm not sure what she called him, you talk about the hero here, but what about the women? What about the heroines? And he made a conversation that the women are already where they're supposed to be. It's the men who need to do all of the struggling and everything. And I was like, wow, that's an interesting conversation that he made. But she luckily didn't take that answer for granted, and basically said, I'm going to write my own book. And she created The Heroine's Journey. And based on both of them, I created what I discussed with Jay earlier this week, the human journey, which is behind me. That's the conversation we had. Like, as human beings, we all have our day-to-day things that we bump into. And I think that the gene keys can be a good way to open our eyes to figure out our shadows. At the end of the day, there's so much imprinted, so the whole somatic imprint into our system by whoever in our life that we need to clear up. And that's part of the journey. And the gene keys, basically part of that journey is, let's see what shows up and handle it. Part of my approach as a transformational coach is, let's find those challenges so we can uncover all of that crap and bring it to the surface so we can get rid of it. Not as a therapist, careful, but as a coach moving forward to something, and then figure out whatever pops up and then handle that. I'll leave it there, Jay.
Jan, I have a question before you go. The chart behind you, you developed that?
Yeah.
Because I have a very similar, like I was telling you about the books that I had the epiphany. It looks very similar to that, but I don't know what yours is. Can we share? I don't know.
We can. Mine is on LinkedIn. So if you go to, I'm not sure if you're on LinkedIn. If you go to,
are you anywhere else, or because I'll make a LinkedIn bio if I've got to go see it. I don't care, but I'm not on LinkedIn. But I'll
just continue with the conversation. I'll find a picture and I'll post it here in the chat.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jen. Yeah, it is a super cool framework. We talked about it. Was it yesterday? I think it was yesterday, or maybe day before yesterday. Regardless, it basically takes the hero's journey, which is like very big feeling and very almost like a movie, and takes it to, no, how does this show up in our day-to-day life? And like, how can we engage with this in a way that actually helps me to see what is the next step that I need to take? Like, it's such a, Jan's a 5-1, and I told him he is like the definition of 5-1. It is like a practical solution for the world that he went within and created on his own. That's a 5-1 times a million. So yes, please put that in there. And thank you for being willing to share it too, Jan. I know that's your work, and I'm grateful.
And somehow I'm not able to put it in the chat. I'm not sure why not.
I think.
What's your LinkedIn? Will you share your LinkedIn? And then I'll just copy that, and I'll make a LinkedIn account so I can see it. I'm good. I'm excited because I'm like, what just happened? I literally just saw this when I was taking my shower yesterday, like a spear coming out. And then I look behind you and I'm like, oh my gosh. Okay. Like, this stuff is just kismet for me. It's kismet.
There it is.
Thank you.
Put it in the chat for you. But yeah.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to circle back on was something Lindsay said, which is this idea of just shadow, gift, and Siddhi being a unified field. And I think that it is so valuable to be able to see the gene keys in that way. And one like explosion that went off in my brain is, I'm actually listening to a book that Marco sent me, Marco is still here. It's called The Kabbalion, and it is really cool book from like 1908, I think is when it was published. And one of the things that they said in that book, they talked about, I think it was pertaining to different frequencies. I can't remember totally, but they talked about this idea of like, where is the boundary between the shadow and the gift? So in Lindsay's case, like, where does unease stop and intuition start, right? What is the event that makes those two different things? And when you think about it in that way, you recognize that it isn't one or the other, right? It's this just spectrum of consciousness that we are on at any given moment. And that's why that shadow energy contains the gift, right? Richard says it over and over. The shadow contains the gift. And it's because, Lindsay said, it is this unified field of energy. And when we learn how to work with that energy, like the example I use is anxiety versus excitement, it totally changes our ability to engage with the world. Where do we
By the
want to
way,
go?
Jay, I just emailed the image to you. So
Okay.
when you send out the link to the recording, feel free
Yes,
to put it in there
perfect.
for people so everybody has access. That's the easiest.
Perfect. Thank you. Yes, I'll put it in there. When I send out the recording, I'll put it in there. It'll be attached so everybody can check it out. We're
Hi.
open.
I'm really resonating with what everybody's saying, the mother wound, or you were saying mother hunger, but I've heard people say mother wound. My mom has dementia, so I can't talk to her. And I'm in a position where I feel very like empathy and things like that for her, as opposed, even though she wasn't like, she was a very judgmental mother and not very loving, because everything was about judging her children so that they were right with God, so that they would go to heaven. And so it wasn't like a mother. Yeah, it was a rough relationship. And again, I'm appreciative of everybody saying this because I just had an epiphany about it for me. Yeah, again, like I'm in a position where I would love to have a conversation with my mom because I feel like I have healing about things that she has done, and that I'd be able to have a conversation, and that I have a lot of love for how much she did try, the things that she did do right. And I feel that towards my dad too, like he's deceased and like he was an alcoholic, etc. But there was some good qualities there, and I can't have those conversations. But the epiphany I had was I was thinking about this yesterday, about how I'm in the acting field and I'm putting myself in front of people that are judging me. And even if they're not the overly judgmental eyes that my mother had for me, it still comes up. It still can feel that way, which creates upset and anxiety in the body. And so my trying to overcome that, I just realize, is like me trying to heal my mother wound by being okay with being visible, being myself, and that just goes for life too. I walk around and I'm not trying to be like overly visible or overly anything. And because I walk around, I think, with that people, oh, there's people judging me, even though it's on a very deep down level, because it used to be very in the forefront, but now it's just, oh, whatever, I don't care. But I still have that. And so anyway, yeah, I just realized that, yeah, it's just a new layer of the realization of like why I'm in the acting field, is like being okay with being visible and being judged, and coming to being so strong in oneself that you're okay with your beingness, what you're doing, what you're communicating, being like unshakable despite whether or not somebody is looking at you in those ways. I know Sally Field, I remember, said it took me decades to not view myself through other people's eyes. Yeah, so anyway, it was a good epiphany because I can't do that work with her. And I've just realized my life has been trying to heal that through my own self-empowerment. And what better way than to just put yourself in that place of being judged like all the time. And then when we audition, we tape at home and then we email it, and then it just goes to the ethers and you don't hear anything. So it's not even, oh, you did great. There's just nothing. You either get it or you don't. And so that's another communication. It's, oh, I'm not right, or I'm not good enough, or no, that's not actually what it is. It's just you could have been the number 2 pick. You have no idea. And it's like yeah, anyway, I'll stop talking, but you get the idea, and I'm appreciative of this conversation.
You know what that brings up for me, Corinne? If you had a different style of mothering, a mother who was, say she was the opposite, honey, you can do anything you put your mind to and any project you bring home. Oh my gosh, Corinne, darling, that's so beautiful. Then you would have a different outlook. You wouldn't feel like you're being judged. You would feel like when you're being observed, that you're being admired.
Yes, and that makes me cry, you even saying that. That would be, and I contemplate that all the time. Like, different people grow up differently, and there's some people that just, they don't have any idea that they can't do something or be something or achieve something, and so they don't go into a conference room or a job interview or an audition and they don't have that battle within. They just go, I'm here to show myself, you like it or you don't. And I can feel that at times, but not underneath is something else. And my dad did have that for me. He was a cheerleader, but then that relationship severed when he turned to alcoholism and he was no longer trustworthy.
But then I think what I'm hearing as well, then other people will have other challenges. I know all of us in this room have our own personal challenges from our upbringing,
Yes.
whatever they are. And in your case, it's walking into a room and doing what you need to do. In my case, it actually has been, and that the experience was only from 10 years ago or something like that. Before I actually felt free again to post my stories on LinkedIn, I had to overcome some challenges.
Yes.
Right? I stopped doing that for us. So we all have those. And I think that's the interesting part. When you walk into that room, as you just described, and you feel that sensation coming up, to figure out, okay, before I walk in or before I send in that video, what shows up for me? What do I think right now? What happens in my body? Going back to what was shared in the chat as well, some of these somatic experiences. What is showing up in my body? And when did I have that experience before? And it may have been your mom, it may have been your dad, it may have been a teacher. I shared a story with Jay the other day as well about what my wife experienced with a teacher at school at the age of 8. Like, she created something. The teacher was, you didn't do that by yourself. So she was immediately turned into the you're an imposter type of thing, which made it very difficult for her to share her art and actually sell it right now. She makes the most beautiful pieces, but getting them out into the world is like, I'm not ready for that. So we all have a challenge or multiple challenges. And I think it's interesting when we start playing for something like you literally do to get a role, right? You get faced with those challenges, and then you can figure out what to do about them.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Somebody who grew up, say, in nepotism or grew up wealthy, they're going to have the challenge of maybe they lose their money because they're not good with money because they never had a idea of how to make it, save it. Whereas us, we get not just me, gets like, oh, I know how to make it, I save it. So I totally get you. Yeah, and it brings to mind the idea that cherishing, okay, that's my journey here, and that's my special thing, the empowerment thing. And I do think that's like a gene key. That is one of my gene keys, is something about empowerment. I don't have it up right now, but yes, good point.
There's something that might be helpful for you, Corinne, and everyone else that's listening on the call. I talk about this often. Richard talks about it often, which is the idea that our life is a myth, right? Our life is a story on some level. Our life is a movie on some level, because ultimately what we're seeing, what we're feeling, what we're sensing isn't the actual reality of what's happening here around us and with us. And so what's true is that thing that you feel in your heart, that thing that is noticing the emotions, the thing that is breathing your body, the thing that is feeling all of those senses. That's what you really are. You're not the sense experience. You're not the feelings. You're not any of that stuff. You're this deeper thing. And I believe that because we all have that deeper thing that is breathing us, that the reason that we are who we are is because we have lived our set of life experience. And that's what turns us in. That's what makes us different. But ultimately, if I lived your life, I would be you. And if you lived my life, you would be me. And so if that's true, if we're acting, which I believe we are, then even in your day-to-day life, you get to choose what character you're playing. And you can show up as whatever character you want to show up as. Just like with a movie role, it is no different. We're all creating the story that we're living.
Yes, I agree. Yeah, so it's actually my evolution that is the The line 1, self and empowerment, 62.1, impeccability, precision, intellect. I don't know. That word means a lot to me. I'm a 1-3, so going back to what we were saying about being led, I was led to do some YouTube videos, which I did. And my tagline was self-empowerment through acceptance. So for me, a big thing is accepting it all, like accepting, oh, I didn't do that quite right. That's fine. That's who says that somebody did that better, or, oh, I really messed that up. And it's no, you're good. Anyway. Yeah. And then as a 1-3, I don't know, I stopped doing those videos. I was led to do it. And then you think, oh, that's going to be the thing. And then I don't want to do it anymore. I had the realization of why it was being more visible, but it was like, yeah, that's not for me. I don't think that's my path. But for some reason, the universe wanted me to jump there. And so I did. But anyway, yeah, I like what had to say about what shows up in my body and thinking on that. But yes, what you said about Jay was really resonated as well. Thank you.
Of course. Or Octavia, what do you have to share?
It was just something that came up about the 1-3 dynamic, because I'm a 1
Please.
also, and it is a bit of a challenging. We all, as Jan said, that we all have our challenges, and my life's work is justice, so that's the shadow of limitations. So it's like you can't really escape it. They're just a part of life. There's always going to be limitations. So that acceptance piece has been huge. And along with something that Jay, I think, brought up earlier, was the surrender. Is I can't really accept things until I surrender to what is actually showing up. And the 1 line wants to pursue all of this knowledge, and then the 3 line wants to go out and have experiences. So it's a lot of trial and error and a lot of messiness in the 3 spot. And so balancing those 2 of feeling like, am I enough? Do I have enough knowledge to go and showcase? And that's something that I definitely struggle with in terms of being seen. I do have a lot of realism because of that life work, that gift. And so I do have a lot of solution oriented rather than staying stuck in the problem. But I find my own loops in it, my own loops of getting caught up in those limitations. And then, okay, I got to go have an experience. And why am I doing this? Why did I do that? And just suspending that questioning and really surrendering into the experiences that I'm nudged to have, whether I understand it in the moment, later always come full circle. And, oh, that's why I needed to do that 10 years ago. And I've had that experience over and over where I didn't understand why I was called to do something. It didn't work out necessarily the way I thought it was going to in my head. But then really that surrender, acceptance, and trust, like just trusting the process, trusting myself, trusting others that come into my life, and trusting my own sacral authority to know whether that's for me or not for me. And that is still an ongoing process of really listening and to that sacral authority. And in some ways, it's become so much easier because I was really listening for years to so much emotions. And like, I have an open ajna, and I have an open crown, and I have an open throat and open emotions. So I was constantly just going on this freaking roller coaster of emotions, and 80% of them weren't even mine. That was like a huge gift that I found, that I'm actually not non-emotional. And I was like, oh, this makes perfect sense. I thought I was living 2 different people. Like when I'm by myself and quiet and don't have distractions from like social media, where I'm just out in nature or I'm out in my garden, I'm so calm and at peace, and information and insights just travel in. I can do grid work. My gifts show up then. There's all these beautiful pieces. And then I go out and I'm around people, And I feel sometimes like I'm just completely overwhelmed with emotions. So that's been something in the last 5, maybe 10 years that I've really been honing in on what is mine, what is my frequency, and what is someone else's. And then I think we had talked about too about the taking on projections and how easy that is to pick up from the collective or from someone who has been like a mother who has been judgmental or critical or a perfectionist or has OCD. These are all layers that my own mother carries. And I've picked those up so many different times over my lifetime and thought that they were mine. And it's created a lot of discord. And so I'm really grateful to have stayed on the journey long enough to find human design and gene keys, because it's brought in so much different level of insight and understanding. But I just wanted to share about the 1-3. It is a bit of a challenge to balance those two energies. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Octavia. I have 1-3 in my profile, which is in my EQ, but I have 6s everywhere. So the first 30 years of my life, if you don't know about the gene keys or human design, the line 6 has a 3-part life. And up until 29, 6s live as 3s, essentially. So I very much resonate with everything that you've said. On another level, too, from a place of being an empath. Like, I thought that I didn't have feelings for 30 years, give or take, legitimately. Like, I thought that I just was different or not. I didn't know. But like, my daughter was born and I didn't feel anything, which is still hard for me to say to this day. But that's the level of shutdown that I was emotionally for a period of time. And what I came to realize is the same as you, is that the reason that I got shut down isn't because I don't have feelings. It's because I feel it so deeply that I couldn't handle it. And until I found God and eventually the gene keys, I didn't have a means for understanding it. And so it was just like, it got stuck in me. It couldn't pass through, and I would take it on and take it in, and then I would start acting in that way, even though they're not actually mine. And now I've gotten to a place where I can see that even my emotion doesn't dictate how I need to operate in the world, because even those are just passing through me. Even those are not me. I feel anger. I'm not angry. That's a very big distinction in that world. And man, that's been a light bulb and a half for me. So thank you for speaking to that. We're back to open floor. Well, somebody gets the courage. I just want to give myself a plug again. I shot a movie last year. Fun story. The only movie I've ever shot in my life, which should come out next year. So I'll keep you guys in the loop. It's called Crimson Cove. It's a surf horror movie, and it's going to be terrible and amazing. And I can't wait. It should be on either Netflix or Prime. They're trying to work out the contract for it now, but I just have a tiny part in it. It was super fun though. But floor is open.
Are you the monster in it or what?
I am a bad guy in it, actually. I'm one of the like townies who, like, these outside like city boy surfers come, and it's like this laid back but very cliquey surf lineup, and a bunch of stuff happens and they end up getting murdered, and I'm one of the murderers, I guess. It's random, so random. That was one of the things that came up. We talked about earlier. I took a year of doing nothing. That just found me out of nowhere. That was one of those things that was like, what is this? I've never, like, I acted in high school. I was in like stage acting, and then this came up. It was so weird. Anyway,
talk about shadow frequencies.
We are open. Whoever has questions, comments. Andrea,
Hey,
shoot.
Jay. Whoops. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I've been walking around doing gardening and stuff while we're listening. So thank you so much, everybody. This is so freaking timely. And as I go into the kitchen, and there's my daughter standing there, and my mom and I just spoke recently about how she said, I'm the oldest of 4 kids. She just turned 80. And how she said, I'm so sorry that I abandoned you when the boys came along, because there was me. Then she had a very bad IUD infection. So she didn't think she was going to be able to have any more kids. And then my brother came along when I was 4. And then my Second brother came 2 years after that, or within actually 18 months after that. So that's where she completely blitzed out, which I totally get. I think everybody can understand if you've all of a sudden got two boys, and the older of the two had major allergies, trips in the middle of the night to the children's hospital, that kind of thing. But it's interesting that it's just at her 80th birthday party that we just had that in July, that she said, "I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you." And it opened up a conversation, but there were like, with families, there's just like multiple, like the whole holograph of one person and the other person and how they all layer. And then my daughter, as we were listening to our conversation in the kitchen, this conversation, meaning she was just listening a little bit, and she's like, "Mom, I just got to say, I'm just glad that you keep trying. We have our moments, but that the fact is that you're aware of it." She goes, and again, it's not like a bad, you keep trying, keep going, little girl. Like it's, but there's a real role reversal at times that I find it really disorienting. Yet, because as a parent, you think, "Oh, I'm supposed to be there," but yet to feel that nurturing coming back after everything that I've been through with my kids and the divorce. And she said, if anything, it was Dad's fault. It's okay. You know what? We've talked about this. It's polarity. She said, yeah, you're right. Huge appreciation, everybody, for this sharing. It's incredible. It is just incredible to go through and to witness. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being brave enough to have this on out loud around your kids. I think that's a big deal. There's a lot of people that need direction right now, especially the younger generation. That's actually what we were talking about yesterday on when I hopped on with Jan. Like, it was just, it's very clear to me that I'm not sure I'm the guy, but it's, I could be. I don't know. We'll see.
We'll talk again next week. We'll figure out what to do there.
We have to line you up for an interview with Robert Grant. Yeah.
Yeah, seriously.
He's next year. No, you're going to be meeting him before you know it. I had that feeling the other day. Just like, all right, this is all coming together.
I would love to talk to him. Zach Bush is another one too that I would love to talk to. He's incredible. All right, who's got stuff?
Thanks.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Did you have more?
No,
okay.
No, just I felt like I was jumping in. I'm like being a little rogue here. Like I said, literally like gardening and getting stuff, and just there's stuff I'm going. One other thing, actually, I wasn't going to say, okay, taking up time, right? No, you're not taking up time. But just something that happened with a girlfriend recently who's going through a really crazy divorce situation, but she's at a point where it's, I don't know, how do I put this? It's just a little bit like dealing, like in a very loving way, you're dealing with somebody who's dealing with kind of 3-year-old, 4-year-old emotions that never got felt. And because we talk at such a deep level, I experienced it the other day with her, where she called when I don't take a nap around supper time, but I was feeling so tired and so heavy. It's no, I got to listen to my body. So I lay down and I was in this deep place. And usually I'm way more, I can not wrangle, but I can be present for her, what she needs, even though I see that she needs to step back the situation to a point where she can say, okay, this is where I could have reined it in, kind of thing, or just said, oh, this is about what I actually do want in life, but because this situation caught me off guard. I know she had an argument with her son and it went really south. He's only 15 or 16, but it's really difficult right now, and them blaming her for why the parents split, because it was just in the last 2 years. So she called me up and it caught me off guard. And so she was explaining this to me, and I said to her, but hold on, isn't that what you want? You want this freedom so that the family stuff, but yeah, but we've got the custody and the timing. And I went, yeah, but you want that other freedom part. She goes, I guess I can't talk to you because I wanted to be talking to an open and supportive friend. And then she just hung up, and I thought, I get it. I do get it. But it's like, she woke me up basically out of this deep reverie. But so I know that was just the inner being, like, boom, just shot out. And I'm like, pardon me, fuck. Felt like Witcher. It's like, I guess I just have to wait for this to play itself out, because she's got a lot of mothering and fathering, and I feel like in some ways I've been doing that mothering role, and so it's been heavy on me this week, and today it's really bubbling. So I just want to say thank you. I needed to talk, and I wasn't expecting to talk about that.
That's okay.
So maybe you're getting what you want too, because you don't really want to deal with her at that level, do you?
No, yeah, and that's exactly it. but she's
so
also
just
pointing out to me my own resentments that I'm like, kind of thing. It's after I'm like, it's sorry. It's, yeah, I don't want that, but yet what's the gift in it? Right?
if it were me and I put myself in your place, I would be the good girl trying to be a good friend and do the right thing, but
Yeah.
yet feeling inauthentic because
Yeah.
without
And
being judgmental, maybe she needs a different ear, maybe she needs the honesty, but it's what do you need?
yeah. And at that moment, I was, like I said, napping, just in a really deep nap and listening to Bashar or something. Like, it was a really good listening. And then she called and it was this jangling. I thought, all right, there's something here. And then the words just went blah. And I
Good.
thought, oh, and then at that moment, I'm like, this is going to go in a way. So I thought, no, embrace it. I'm a 3-5 in the line. So it's, yeah, I just have to embrace that part and deal with the consequences after. But the truth comes out so often like that. Yeah. But okay, Jane, I know I need to listen more, like you've said, and ask for help. I guess this is part of it. Yeah.
You know what happened to me this morning? This is totally different, but yet it ties in.
Yeah.
I was listening to a podcast and a doctor was talking about cancer prevention, and she spieled off a recipe for a really good shake for the morning. So I wrote it all down and I made it this morning, and it tastes like crap. It's not very good, but it has all these good ingredients. Everything in it was really good. So I thought, oh. So here's the point. Do I drink it anyway because I don't want to waste all that good nutrition and because it would be good for me? That's the route I went because I just didn't have what it takes to just say this sucks, even though it is good, but I can't pour it out. So you know what happened? I was cleaning the Vitamix, and I don't know exactly how it happened, but I had a whole glass full there like this, but a bigger one, and it fell over and it broke.
Oh, I was going to say,
And
did
I
the cat
had
knock
this
it over?
Shake. Nope, the cat's not on the counter. There it is. It's what we wish for. Just be outright with it because it's going to happen anyway. Because
Yeah.
it's almost like the universe, the playback is speeding up so fast that we are getting what we wish.
Yes, that's exactly it.
For you too, you didn't really want to talk to her. So you gave her a gem of truth. And if you didn't plan it that way, but if she's not receiving, she didn't receive your gift, so she handed it back to you basically. So the way, I don't know, the way I see it, there comes a point in many relationships where you realize this isn't a productive exchange any longer.
Yeah.
And I've let relationships go because they've lived their purpose, and you don't need to drag them to the end because we're raised that you have to nurture relationships, do a lot of work to keep them going. And it's no, you don't. If they become too much work, they're not productive anymore for either one of you.
And that's exactly it. And that's where I feel that I honestly, she's one of my closest friends. We've got a lot of history, and there's no feeling of obligation. Do you know what I mean? There's that feeling of it was more sudden that I wanted, but it's because Mars is squaring Jupiter or squaring the sun, Jupiter, and yeah, I forget what it is. But Mars is heavy now, and I've got a lot of Mars in my chart, and I just thought, okay, you know what? Something just let loose, and the space was created, and it will fill up with her because I really do believe in her ability to rise up. She's so powerful as a person and in her convictions, and it's really hard to see somebody that you care about struggle. But knowing and that's the other piece, is knowing how I actually feel about her or how I know her to be gives me that strength to let the boundary or let it just stay, let the guillotine come down. And yeah, like Men in Black, shoot somebody's head off, but it's going to grow back. I don't know, it just depends who you look at, right? And some people are like that, just like or with the friends. You can just, I believe in the strength of our relationship and of our continued, I don't know.
Wait and
gets to each
see.
other.
She might take that and really chew on it, and it might be a paradigm shift for her.
I'm hoping
Yeah.
for both, like it's for me, it's that, and I know that there's work or not work, but there's more to uncover that way. And what she helped me also see this week was some resentment I felt toward, because I did actually feel that little bit of resentment, and I felt that little bit of, damn it, why are you calling now? I just got my moment here. I've been on with people all day, and then that happened. So I was fed up, but it was at the same time, there's also this piece that came through. So bye, Shelley.
Yeah. So maybe you were angry that you couldn't express to her that this is not a good time for me.
I did say, I said, I'm sleeping, napping. And then she went blah. And then I went blah. And then she's okay, I guess this isn't a good time for you. And I needed to support a friend. And I went, okay, fine, bye. Chat later. But
Carrie or Octavia, did you guys want to chime in with something?
that's all I've got to say. Thank you.
It might be coming your way, Andrea. I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna let Octavia go. I don't have something specifically for Andrea, but
Okay.
since we had time, I had raised my hand and was going to share my, I don't know what word to use, just what I've been thinking about in relation to what everybody's sharing today and how my personal experience fits. Yesterday, Jay had, I think it was yesterday, released the video on the lines.
Mhm.
And it was perfect because I was thinking about my 2 lines, and I have in my Venus sequence majority line 2 in my spheres, and they sit there and I don't know what to, I don't know how to fit them. And so I liked having the walkthrough that you did, Jay, connecting all of them, which I've played around with them before, but not all the way through the profile. And so I had an opportunity to do that. And just thinking about anger, like people were sharing, that was one of mine where it was like in the EQ, I have a 2 and it's courtesy and aggression. And back when I first noticed it, it was, I'm not aggressive. And so I had to think about in what ways that I was, and just hearing people talk about today, the emotionality, like just moving into allowing myself to be more expressive. The 2 expression, the self-expression, has definitely been a practice in my life, and it's one that I'm really still doing, and I can see the importance of it when I look at my Venus sequence and see all those 2s there, because I am in my activation sequence of 5-1. I'm practicality and solitude, like peopling is, but my core wound is the gift of intimacy. Obviously, I have to go there. And I have that gene key 3 times in my prosperity sequence. I can see the importance and where I'm going with it. And yeah, it's encouraging hearing everybody's stories today.
For me too. I am right there with you. One thing I encourage you to think about, and I'm sure you know this already, but one of the other sort of areas that require a little bit more awareness for a second line is denial. So really trying to take in, like you're already doing, but like really looking, an honest self-inquiry of like, where is this energy showing up for me? And sometimes for me, like deep inquiry around denial, journaling is always the thing that helps to get me there for whatever reason. So I encourage you to maybe give that practice a go. Just if you're familiar with like morning pages where you just set a timer for 20 minutes and just stream of consciousness and just let whatever comes out, no judgment, no anything. And it could be on a topic if you want to choose one beforehand or not. But that gives me access to my more unconscious stuff in a way that makes it much more noticeable and real for me.
Okay, thank you. That's another area, another spot in my life where actually writing is coming in for me. So obviously I need to be doing something with
Octavia, did you have something you wanted to share, whether it's for Carrie or for Andrea or for yourself, whoever?
Yeah, I wanted to just share a couple of things that kind of came to the surface while I was listening to Andrea's share. One thing that I've been working with a couple other energy practitioners in like a larger universal grid sense is the shift in the energetic paradigm of victimization and as it relates to the feminine archetype. And that's a huge thing that's coming up for men and women, but especially the feminine and feminines who have been raised by women with mother hunger. There's just no frame of reference. Like, just to share a little bit about my history, I did a shamanic journey to find the mother archetype, the mother in my line that actually embodied a healthy attachment and a healthy love and nurturance and protection. And I had to go back 22 generations before I found one. So this is huge, really big work to be shifting these paradigms of that, what is the victimization, and feeling like a victim to other people's projections or other people's needs. I did a container with a really beautiful practitioner, and we work with a lot of dragons, archetype dragons. And anyway, the container was called Saviorella, the dragon of being the ultimate feminine savior, swooping in to be able to save anyone from anything. And that's such a strong, like, part of nurturing. And then separating that out and allowing other people to move through, no matter what, how they're showing up, whether they're showing up with anxiety, urgency. I know for me, a hook is urgency. If someone's really showing up in urgency, it really triggers my Saviorella, that archetype that just wants to swoop in and give all the answers and be all the things. And every time I do that and I don't check in with my sacral first, I get hooked into it. I have to do a lot of energy cleanup because I take on so much energy from the other person. I end up being in my own state of grief, my own state of frustration, and then the anger turns inward onto myself. So really embracing the boundaries and energy hygiene, like, that is our way that we love ourselves. It's the way that we teach others how to love us. And it also allows people to move through their own things that desire, because someone who's coming with urgency to you wants you to fix their thing in the shadow. They may not be able to see it or consciously recognize it, and that's okay. You don't have to point it out. Like, I'm a truth sayer, so I've definitely got myself into some sticky wicks by just speaking that. And I've also learned that I don't have to speak it. And so it's sometimes for me, it's like I still get in the hook, but I am much, much better at just slowing myself down, being in the present, and making a decision. Like, I don't have to answer this phone call right now. I don't have to answer this text right now. And giving myself that permission and space to be present with what is true for me. Because as a 3 line, and I think you said you were a 3/5, it's really easy to want to go into that, to build the worth of myself. And I've seen this with in other placements of 3 lines. It's like building your worth by what you can give to somebody else. And it's such a cycle, and it's everywhere out in the collective. And it's really just that shedding of, it's like a combo of dishonoring oneself because you don't have that capacity to sit and be present. And so when the savior comes in and holds that space, sometimes you take on that projection. So there's a lot of like discernment in there to unravel, but I just wanted to share that for me, sometimes it's really just taking the steps farther back so that I don't even answer the phone call. I just have to say to myself, there's nothing that's that urgent. So I can take this space and really get in alignment with myself. Is this something that I need to tend to, or is this something that this person really needs to unravel for themselves? And to be honest with you, a lot of times, the person that I've said no, that I can't be that person for them, they just go on to the next person. That's how impersonal it is.
Oh yeah.
They literally will just bounce to the next person and the next person and the next person. And it's boom, light bulb.
Yeah. And that's exactly it. It's that ping pong, like kind or like that pinball kind of thing. And I knew she was in that mode, but I hear everything you're saying. Cause yeah, usually I'm the one to just step back and yeah, that's okay. And I can listen and just whatever just falls off. But I knew there was a purpose in it because it jarred me out of this deep nap. It was like, okay, this is happening. This has to happen for some reason for me and her. Obviously there's a benefit like in the universal sense, but yeah, it was, yeah. Yes, everything that you're saying. Thank you. Because but it's just in this case, it was again the reason I'm sharing it is that you just know sometimes you're in that moment of, all right, this is where I'm actually dealing with this piece right now, and then afterwards you just okay, I'm already in bed having a nap, so I guess I'm going to start integrating and processing it right here. And it's obviously been a long one because usually I know I do a lot of this on my own, but this is just stuck since Sunday, and today I'm like, why isn't it going away? Oops, I hit my elbow. Yeah. But yeah.
And that 5 line too, you want to like, it's tricky, the 5 line, what I've noticed with clients that are 5 lines and also my mom who's an unhealed 5 line, that it's really a lot about projections, a lot about other people projecting their crap onto you.
Yeah.
And then the balance of you projecting your stuff onto other people.
Yeah.
So finding that frequency in that is like such a gem, because I didn't realize, like, understanding my mom's a 3/5, I didn't really realize that I, as a 3 line, was taking on her projections and her wounds my entire childhood. I definitely resonate with the scapegoat, the black sheep archetype. I'm the first person in my family line who is actually doing any kind of healing. So I'm a curse breaker, and it's very hard, it's challenging to forge this path without having a tribe. And that's why I'm reaching out and challenging myself to be seen, because I do need the tribe and I do need that. I have the key 44 twice in my chart, in my keys. So I know that I need the tribe, even though as a 1 line, I can really almost sometimes be like hermetic, like really just like, I'll just stay over here in my little knowledge comfort zone and garden and let people come to me, which there's a certain truth to that, but also, yeah, that just not taking on those projections. And then once you do, what do you do with them?
Roam into my garden along with the yucky cancer drink. And then I let the, like you're saying, the garden, that's what I'm doing. Like my yard is, I'm doing art. Everything else. It's
Beautiful.
This is all. So yeah, that's it. And Perry, I was just thinking about your line. My head is ping ponging around, and you're saying that you have the repetition of the lines, and I find that fascinating. That you said you have a lot of 1s and 2s, I think. But yeah, and I don't have any 1s or 2s in my chart. I have 3/5 and then 3/4/5, and I have 1/6, which is in my culture. So
I have 2 1s in my activation sequence, and they're my only 1s. Yeah. And then I have 4 2s in my Venus.
Wow.
4, yeah.
And
I don't have cool. 2s besides the 1/2 is in my Venus and my Pearl. It's my core / vocation one, but I don't have 2s anywhere else. It's Venus 2s.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's fascinating. Because like I said, I looked at my mind. Yeah. God. Anyhow, insights on that are coming, but it just,
That's cool.
Dottie, do you have something relatively
Thank
quick
you.
to share? I got to wrap us down soon.
Yes, Octavia, I just want to express how amazingly you took that, what I was trying to say, and expanded it so beautifully and eloquently. Thank you for opening that up. I really got into that. You're so smart and have done so much work. I just appreciate how that came out. Thank you. And I'm in awe of you, actually. that's a nice. So I'll say this. I am, you guys don't know this, but I wanted to recruit Jay. I think I already said it actually, and I couldn't afford it, but I was doing exactly what you said. I was trying to hang up on him all of my issues right now because I was all triggered about everything, about the period of my life or whatever's going on. So it's this same thing. And so anyway, I got rejected, rightfully, and I was, because of the headspace I was in, I was taking it with this inadequacy shadow I have in my life work or my life purpose. Of course, I take it as, see, you're not good enough, blah, 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 all the self-talk I go into. So then I took a week or two and I didn't show up. And I was feeling like, oh God, this is so not good. This is so not healthy. This is how people get sick, is by talking to themselves this way. Like, you've got to snap out of it. You have, anyway. So today I decided I'm feeling better. I'm gonna go on the call, and I opened it up and brought in the mother stuff, and look what happened. It's just so amazing. So I want to say to everybody, if you're ever in Cayman, you must come. You need to take a long walk on the beach and talk about whatever arises. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Scotty. And just for clarity, so that, and I think you know this, but it had nothing to do with how I felt about you at all. I think that, like I said when we talked before, I think that you have so much wisdom and so much to share with the world. And also know that I'm not the one that needs to help you do it. That's all. That's all it is. I know that you are at a stage right now where, like we talked about, it's time for you to go inside, not time for you to listen to me. If you were listening to me, I would just put what I want you to do in your head. And that's not what I'm here for. I'm here to pull stuff out, not put stuff in.
I know. It's so perfect. I get it. Thank you.
And I just want to speak to, so I'm actually, Octavia said she had 60 in her life's work. I have 60 in my purpose. So it's a lot about balance, right? It's a lot about this finding the middle way. And I got hammered last week with, when having a conversation like Andrea did with a couple of people like Dottie who wanted to work with me, that I brought some things forward that they didn't necessarily want to hear, or things that I saw that, like somebody, for example, I knew needed to start on activation sequence work, but that's not what they thought. And so there's just these moments of needing to find the balance between, and this is still, I'm talking about it because it's something I'm struggling with, between being compassionate and hearing and meeting somebody where they are, and sharing your truth, and ultimately staying true to who you are and to your intuition. And that is one of the hardest things for me to balance. And so I just want to share that I'm there right with you guys, and to speak to the urgency calling you into a situation to go and save somebody. I think that there is I have 56 in my profile twice, and Richard actually talks about this. There's a very subtle layer of distraction, which is the distraction of service, ultimately, right? Which is, you want so badly to help somebody else, but you don't want to help them. When you really go deep inside, it's not to resolve something for them, it's to resolve something because you feel uncomfortable. And that is a very big difference. And then the last piece I'll say about that too is ears of wisdom. When people are ready to hear, they hear, and you can't control when that time is. But like I said, there's a compassion that needs to be there and a graciousness and so it's like, how do you balance all that? And I'm not totally sure. But to take us home, thank you for being here. We have another one a week from today, also at noon. It's actually the same link. And also, if you're already on the list, I'm going to send out the email to everyone there. So you don't have to register again if you've already registered. Lastly is work for me, or with me, I should say. There's two ways now. So as I have dug in on this Gene Keys Guides course, one of the things that has come forth to me on Richard's advice and Elijah's advice and Tanmayo's advice, or people that are intimately tied with the Gene Keys, is that those profile sessions and a shorter, just an exchange in the moment, as opposed to what I'm doing otherwise, which is like a 3 to 12 month long thing. This would be more like an hour or 2 hours of time together, that you can really shift how people are interacting with the Gene Keys. And so I've opened to that a little bit as well. So if you're wanting something that is maybe just a guide towards the right direction, I battled that tooth and nail for a long time. And in fact, in a few of my videos, I say that I am against them. And I reserve the right to change my mind as I learn new information. And so that's where I am right now.
Even battled that this week. This is fresh. Wonderful.
The other piece, or the other way, is, like I said, a longer. So we're talking 3 to 12 months of really deep work. And it could be activation, could be Venus, could be Pearl, could be all of it. Really trying to shift the way that you internally and externally relate to the world.